Son of a bitch. Well, I don't know about you lot, but I've just been having a great whale of a time. Whale of a whale old time. A whale time. I've been having the whale of a time of my whale life. On my own. Usually it's with my penis in my hand. Today it wasn't. But it was on my own, and you don't get to see it because I'd forgotten to press record. So so I started recording and I forgot to I know it doesn't happen often. I was about to say, I know it happens all the time. No, what happens all the time is I record and then I go, oh, that's shit, I'm going to not upload that one, it's shit, I'm going to do it again. Apparently the new thing, the hip new trend in ewan podcast land is to just fucking not press record. Just sit here. It's actually quite funny to think about it. Imagine if I did that. An entire episode. Fucking an hour and a half. Like extra long episode. And I just don't record any of it. I'm just sat here fucking, whoa, derpy, oh no, Nino, a pee poo. And then realise, the only people who heard that were my downstairs neighbours, whoever's staying in the fucking Airbnb. The famous, the now infamous Airbnb. The one I'm stealing Wi-Fi from. Turns out, the Airbnb downstairs has their Wi-Fi that I leech off of from time to time is okay. It's pretty good Wi-Fi. It's fairly decent. They obviously pay for a pretty good package on their Wi-Fi. But for some reason, their upload speeds. Now, when I first signed up for my Wi-Fi, I didn't really get that upload speeds and download speeds with a different thing. I figured they're just whatever, like upload, download, sure. I don't really care, just give me some fucking Wi-Fi. But that was before I was like uploading videos regularly. So now I realise, maybe I should pay for a better upload speed, but I won't. But what I've come to learn is that the package, the Wi-Fi package they're paying for the owners of the Airbnb downstairs, they get insane upload speeds. Normally, I upload my videos to YouTube. It takes hours and hours, anywhere from like 6 to 12 hours or more, which is kind of ridiculous, but I figured that's just how long it takes to upload a video. Sure, whatever, that's how it goes. That's what I assumed it was. That's how it goes, and that was my lot in life, and I was content for that to just be that. Turns out it is possible to get better upload speeds. Now leeching off of the Wi-Fi downstairs, my podcasts upload in under an hour. Like, it's so much faster. It's ridiculous how much faster it is, and how painfully slow I realise my upload speeds were previously. Under an hour, like it's ridiculous. I gotta sort my shit out. That's why you should all sign up to my Patreon so I can afford better Wi-Fi. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Jesus. Oh, Jesus Christ. So that's something I learned. So now, if nothing else, I don't always, because my phone will still automatically connect to my home Wi-Fi, and I'll maybe switch it over now and again. But certainly when it comes to uploading videos, I will switch to the downstairs Wi-Fi. Don't tell them. Hope they don't find out and change them. Even if they just change the password, that's all it would take for them to change the password, and then I'm fucked. Then I've got to have another leak in my bathroom that fucks up the downstairs kitchen. And then they have to redo my bathroom again so that I get to take a shower downstairs and then sneakily take a picture of their Wi-Fi information and use it for my own benefit. Oh, Ewan, you are a cheeky little monkey. Oh. It's not what they called you at school, but, it's something. What did they call me at school? Well, we've been over that. Let's not get into it. Yeah, let's not. Yeah, let's not and say we didn't. Oh, see, because the saying is let's not and say we did, but I'm saying let's not. Let's just not. Let's not. So the gist of the fantastic, sadly missed 15 minutes of podcast that you didn't get was me drawing some of this and then colouring it in, but also was this, which maybe you saw this while I was blabbering on. Invincible Ronnie. This was I made it in a note on my phone, in the notes application on my telephone, my cellular telephone device, and I cannot for the life of me fathom what the hell I could have meant when I noted down Invincible Ronnie. I have not a duke of an idea, not a fucking piss ass bull stain of a clue what the hell Invincible Ronnie could possibly. Should we Google it? Should we see if Google returns any results for I can't even spell invincible. It's written on a bit of paper next to me. How Invincible Ronnie. Ronnie Coleman, Invincible. When Ronnie O'Sullivan is in great shape. There's someone lifting weights, someone playing snooker or pool. Ronnie Coleman, Invincible. None of this is familiar to me. Let's Google image. Invincible Ronnie. Ronnie Coleman. Oh, he's like a weightlifter, bodybuilder. And he's got a DVD called Invincible! And that's about it for Invincible Ronnie. I have no fucking clue what or why I have Invincible Ronnie as a note on my phone. I don't know. Okay, I wish I knew. I wish I could divulge more information about it, but I can't because I don't know why it's there. I don't know why it exists. I don't know why I exist. I don't know why anything exists. But that's life, innit? Like that song. That's life. It's what old people say. Oh no, there's life. Don't tell my mum that I'm gay. 'Cause she'll kick me out of my home. Because she's a religious nut. Oh God, no. I said that's life. That's life. And I can't deny it. Many times I thought of quitting, baby, but my heart just ain't gonna buy it. Now I'm just singing that's the slide. So the aim, there was an aim for today's episode. Did you realise? Did you know? Well, you probably did, because it's going to have a thumbnail and a title, and it's going to be a whole production of sorts. Point was decay. That was the whole thing. See, because if you're for those that know, for those in the know, for the cool kids in class, you might recognise this guy as a plague marine, a Nurgle, a chaos space marine under the banner of the chaos god Nurgle. Nurgle being the Lord of Decay, the great unclean one, the big fucking loser. He looks like me, and he actually looks like my dad, which is why I love him so much. I always had a fascination with Nurgle from day one of me being into like Warhammer, the Warhammers, you know, those weird Warhammers, the little toys people paint, the little soldier toys people buy and paint and put together and paint them up. From like basically day one, Nurgle was just like, I'm into this. Chaos was always like, okay, these are the bad guys. They've got all these chaos gods and demons and all this shit. And then you see Nurgle, and it's like rotting corpses and bloated bellies and intestines coming out and all this shit. And straight away I was on board. I was like, yeah, that's my jam right there. That's my shit. I am into that for a fact. Yeah, I was not obsessed, but you know, I was really into it. I dug the vibe of it all, the aesthetic. Grimdark, you know, Grimdark, Warhammer, Grimdark. Or in the something 41st millennium, there's no whatever, there's only war, a bunch of war going on in the 41st millennium of the 40,000, Warhammer 40,000, oh, Grimdark, war, only war, never changes. That's a different franchise, but the idea is there still. But Decay, because it resonated with me. You know, back in the day, I couldn't and wouldn't even want to put it into words really sort of exactly how and why it resonated necessarily. But it's this idea of decay, which I've spoken about before, so I'm not going to, you know, dwell on it too much. But I think even back then I sort of understood. And this was in my, you know, still being religious kind of days, or at least being forced to tell people I was religious. Of thinking that, you know, Satan, everyone calls him a bad guy, but really he just wants you to live your life on your terms and not submit to the whims of a God telling you his idea of good and bad, you know, subservience to him and him alone, because something. Satan was like, just live life on your own terms, do what you want to do. I brought that up in Sunday school once. I said, well, it sounds to me, you know, when I was like 10, I was saying, it sounds to me like, you know, God wants you to do what he wants, and then Satan just wants you to do what you want to do. And the teacher was like, oh, no, you haven't understood it. That's silly. Don't be silly. That's silly. Silly. Don't say such silly things, Ewan. And then you grow up and you realise, oh, no, that's pretty much it. That's basically it. That's, you know, Satan. That's how he rolls. That's his basic philosophy is, you know, do what thou wiltst. Doest what thou wiltst. Whereas God is, do what I tell you to do and give me all the credit for everything. Tell me I'm the best. Tell me you love me. Every day, please. Not just some days. And then have one day a week, at least one day a week, where it's all about me. And then every other day is mostly about me. But, you know, you go to work and do all your bits and pieces. But there's at least one day a week that's all about me. Me, bloody me, because I'm God. I made everything because I'm the bloody best. And then Satan's like, but hang on, don't, you know. That's why Satan got kicked out of heaven in the first place. Because God said, right, I've got this plan. I'm going to make this thing called world. It's going to have a bunch of people on it. You know, all these people up here at the moment, they're all going to have to go down to world and then die so that they can come back. But I need a guy to go down and die first to be like, to show the example of like, this is how to die. You've got, you know, it's all about suffering. You've got to suffer first. You can't just die. You've got to suffer and then plead loyalty to me before you can, you know, do the heaven bit of it. And so Satan was like, oh, I'll be the guy. I'll go down there. But, you know, since I'm going to be doing the work and dying, I think it's safe to assume I get the credit for it. And God was like, fuck you, Lucifer, you bellend. Or you think you're going to get credit for doing the actual work? Fuck no. And then he fucking cast him out into hell, into the eternal fiery pits of damnation, because he wanted credit for his own work. The worker wanted credit for the means of production. So the evil CEO fired him without severance, mind you. And then Jesus, little teacher's pet Boy Scout Jesus Bo Beezus was there, and he went, "I'll do it, God. I'll do the work, and all the glory will be yours. I don't need any of it. It's all, you're the best, Dad. I love you so much." And God was like, "That's my boy. There you go. That's how it's done." Yelling down, "See that, Lucifer? Jesus knows how to do it properly. Jesus doesn't get thrown into hell because Jesus, all credit to me. And that's so Jesus knows what's up. That's why he gets eternal life in heaven. He doesn't get to be Lord of heaven because that's me, but Satan gets to be Lord of the underworld. So I guess that maybe things worked out better for him in that way. But so then Jesus was fortunate enough to then be able to come down and be brutally attacked and eventually slain. To give an example of how you're supposed to give up your life in subservience to this God fella. That's how it's supposed to be done. So says Jesus. So just everyone do what Jesus did. I mean, ignore the fact that, he was, the literal Son of God and could perform miracles, but take him as an example. You should all strive to be the literal sons of God. Daughters too, I guess. We won't give women rights yet, not until society deems it appropriate. We'll pretend that God changed his mind. Women were never supposed to have rights in the church, but society probably wouldn't let the church carry on. So we're going to say, "Oh, God changed his mind." Oh, did he? Who did he tell that to? Oh, just people. It's just around. He just said it. Just the other day. It was. Didn't you hear it? It was just the other day. God said, "Oh yeah, women and I guess black people. Sure, yeah, fine, let them in. Fine, I guess. Black people too, fine. See, because black people weren't allowed to be ministers and stuff. They weren't allowed to worship properly." Oh, but God changed his mind and said it's okay now. Yeah, I mean, the Bible is the literal word of God, and you have to take it exactly as it says in the Bible. But women, sure. Black people, sure. We'll change parts of it to fit, what society's. Am I repeating myself an awful lot? Yes, I bloody am. I'm also getting far, far, far away from the point I was trying to make, which was it's not exactly an art book, but it's a book that does have art in it. I popped to the local what it was used to be known as Games Workshop, but very smartly they somewhat recently changed the name of the store to the Warhammer shop, because otherwise you walk in thinking they just sell games, not realising they sell Warhammer specifically. And I was looking for a book about Nurgle so I could do Nurgle drawings. They had a couple. I got this one because this was the main sort of, Chaos Space Marines, Nurgle, Death Guard, Chaos Nurgle Space Marines. Oh, excuse me. And I just wanted a book with just some words and pictures about Nurgle. They're cool. Sadly, this book suffers from the same thing the new Dungeons and Dragons books suffer from, where they've developed or more solidified their brand and their brand identity and the look and style of everything. And as such, everything has to fit that brand and style. So it's all digital artwork, digital paintings, which are fine. Some of them are even good. I like this artwork. I'd just prefer to see... One, I'd prefer to see it painted with paint. Two, I'd prefer to see a greater variety. I'd prefer, because the older books had ink drawings, pencil drawings, you know, colour washes, paintings, all kinds of shit. But this one, it's all just digital artwork because it's got to fit the theme and the brand and the Death Guard are the greatest champions of the Plague God, Grandfather Nurgle. His favoured spreaders of his bounteous gifts look upon them and see their signs, pus seeping from festering wounds that never heal, miasmic smogs of corrosive stinking gas hanging thickly in the air wherever Nurgle's chosen tread. The wriggling lamprey-mouthed tick leeches that clamp onto their rotting flesh, the droning billions of plague flies that swarm on the battlefields they stalk, and the ships in which they course through the stars. See them stride through their foes' defences, impervious to incoming fire. Hear them gurgle and retch their praises to the Lord of Decay as they hack heavy envenomed blades through those that stand against them. Breathe deep of the lung-clogging pollutants pumped from their flesh-fueled power packs. See how their enemies recoil in their mere presence, writhing, vomiting, hacking, coughing, screaming, contorting. See how the foe's flesh is liquefied by the toxic ooze in which the Death Guard drenched them. See how their armour bubbles and melts. How eagerly they are followed by ragged mortal masses desperate for but a sliver of their gifts. How blessed are they to have bound to their will the malady-infested demon engines that hunger so much for the flesh of mortals and to feast on rot and decay and mud and maggots. Truly, they are the great corruptors most blessed. Or blessed. Hello, I'm Brian Blessed. Love that guy. He's a gem. But that was some of my best reading I've ever done. I should do that for a living. See, this is a classic painting, stripped straight of the classic, out of the classic art books. This is an envisioning of the great grandfather Nurgle. His giant, bloated, festering body. Like it said, oozing pus and open wounds. Little giggling, gaggling demons crawling in and out of his body all around him. And his blessed minions trudge the battlefield, dripping and popping pussy boils all over their body and their armour swelling as their bodies burst and pop underneath it. It's all pretty great imagery, really, isn't it? So this is why straight away I was into it. I was like, yes, fucking Nurgle, let's go. Nurgle's legions. After reunification with Mortarion, the Death Guard fought tirelessly in the Great Crusade. But I'm not really going to read the entire thing, don't worry. Depicted most frequently as an enormously rotund hulk of green, rotting flesh hunched over a cauldron overflowing with brewing infections, Nurgle is said to be the creator of every disease to plague mortal life. Though such concoctions may appear to be the work of a cruel being, Nurgle's followers instead consider him a generous benefactor. It is obvious to them that his fecund blessings and bounteous contagions, while mutating them hideously, also make them immune to pain and suffering. Nurgle's realm in the Immaterium is said to resemble a monstrous garden crawling with life and overgrown with bloated vegetation. Groaning and giggling demons gambol among vines resembling pulsating intestines, swamps full of clinging stinking sludge and foliage that frequently bursts into clouds of ooze that fertilise the foul soil for yet new growth. The Garden of Nurgle can even spill into real space when enough entropy, misery and disease is focused at a single point. Cool. Mortarion, he's the guy. See, look how cool they fucking, like, space, because his Space Marine is like a, you know, like a marine in space, like a stand-up soldier man. Do 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 do. Woo woo. You've all seen space. You know what Space Marines are. Ultramarines. You know. Google fucking Space Marine, or specifically Warhammer Space Marines, because there's probably a million different types of space. Okay, Ewan, chill with the whole fucking. Someone's caffeine's taking effect. But I love, like, the you know, bad guys are always more interesting than good guys, and then the corrupt version of a thing is always more fun and interesting than the good version of a thing, because the good version of a thing is like, you know, God. Puh. Boring, shiny, oh, look how fucking brilliant I am. But then you get the dark, twisted, you know, corrupt version. oozing and sweating and dripping and greasy and grimy, buzzing flies and shit, which is, it's how I try to sort of make my work look somewhat sometimes, a bit grimy and grubby and bits flaking off and stuff. It's how I feel. That was the perfect description. Towards the bottom of this bit, rot and decay and mud and maggots. That's what it's all about. Fucking dirt and dust and grime. So even as a kid, talking about, oh, God doesn't know what he's doing, but Satan just wants you to fucking do what you want to do. I understood and related to the nature of the world and decay as a fundamental part of that. So when I saw it depicted visually with guns and knives and axes, I thought it was fucking brilliant. Can't get enough of that shit. I love it. This is Typhus. He's cool. Some of the imagery is cool. Some of it's a bit like, eh. The issue I have. So that's some cool artwork. Very digital painting artwork, especially these backgrounds, but pretty cool, There are art books available, but they're harder to get hold of than just the army books. Some pretty cool zombie type melty faces, intestines, and weird cultists being all about their, patriarchs or whatever. So the artwork, I like the artwork, but I was always disappointed in the actual miniatures. Usually how they were painted by the Warhammer studio, because they have to be up to a certain standard, and that usually makes them clean and shiny. Even when you're trying to paint, rotting, rusted armours and bloated, seeping flesh. I don't know how clear it's going to be on the recording, but look them up. Death Guard miniatures. They've just they use the same painting techniques for these that they use for the Ultramarines, the good guy Space Marines, and that's, I think, part of the problem is having the same painting technique doesn't translate. You've got to adapt the technique to fit the aesthetic of the thing. So they've got these shiny edges and highlighted bits where they should be more sludgy and less highlighted. John Blanche, one of the originators of Warhammer fantasy battles and those sorts of things, his artwork is in those fighting fantasy books I like. You see his painted miniatures, they look like his paintings, and if you see his paintings, they're just brown and mucky and dripping, and they've got real texture and depth to them. Whereas this is like there's a little Nurgling popping out of this guy's the stomach armor or whatever, but there's no real, there's faint carefully painted drips of ooze, but this should be just brown and dripping and horrible, and you should be flicking paint at it and maybe spray a bit, mottled different colours, washes and stuff, where it's just sort of a shiny green with a little face popping out, and it's that's not anywhere near, physically it works, but in terms of how they're painted, because they're painted to the the studio standard, it's just not as filthy as it ought to be. But that's my own personal grievance with this stuff. And these are cool, weird fucking things. Bloat drones. I only know that because I read them. I've been out of the hobby for a long time, so these and quite a lot of the stuff in this book is new to me. They're pretty cool looking fucking things, but they should look a lot grimier than they do. And this is Mortarion. He's the arch guy, one step down from the Great Unclean One himself. That being the Great Unclean One, the Lord Nurgle, or at least a physical representation of him. And then Mortarion, from the very small amount of reading I've done, is supposed to be this guy. The Death Lord is the master of the Death Guard and the demon primarch of Nurgle. He is the dread liberator of Barbarous and the Pale King. He has crushed his enemies for 10,000 years, and his shadow looms large over the galaxy. So he's this guy here, who's like this, like demon primarch, great lord, this battle lord, the Death Lord. And then you see the miniature of him and how it's painted, and he's all shiny and like. He's got nice purple and blue bits and weirdly ornate axe with like different coloured parts and stuff. And like he should be so like his face. You probably won't show on the recording, but his face is really well detailed in terms of the sculpt, and the painting isn't bad. But it's just the painting looks way too clean. It should be just dark and brown and dripping and I don't feel, when I look at him, I don't feel Nurgle's presence jumping out at me, which I feel when I look at some of the artwork. Maybe not so much that one, but stuff like that's like Nurgle. That feels Nurgly gurgly. Some intestines coming out and just big and bloated, and flies coming out of these tubes on top of his armour. And then you see that, and it's like, if you know about the Chaos Gods, there's another god called Zench or Tzinch, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And that's all like, he's the Lord of Change, and everything's like colourful and mystical and magical and crazy. There are the horrors of Zench, or these weird, they don't really have a shape, they're like constantly shifting their shape, these weird colourful demons. That looks more like something from that land of the Chaos Gods than Nurgle. Personally, and this is, speaking from someone who's loved Nurgle since I was fucking 11 years old, so over 20 years I've been into, the themes and ideas of Nurgle and the aesthetic. I've always been the artist, the aesthetic was always an important part of it. So I feel I don't necessarily have an authority to say, but I certainly like to think I've got an understanding of what represents Nurgle. But then I don't work for the company, so what the fuck do I know? Hey, that looks familiar. That's where I've copied some shit from. And now I'm looking to the side at my drawing and I'm like, oh, mine looks like shit now. See, my drawing looks okay on its own, but then you compare it with the actual thing and it looks like shit. I think I may get... so there was this one, and there was... Because there's Warhammer Fantasy, which is like, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, fantasy battles, and then there's Warhammer 40k, which is the sci-fi version. It's like Skyrim, Fallout, that kind of, same game, but set in different realms or whatever. So there's the Warhammer Fantasy Battles version of this, which is more demons and swords than men in suits of armour with guns. So I may get that book as well and do some drawings and artworks based on that stuff. And of course it's an army book, so this is all now rules for using the miniatures in the games, in the battle fight games, which I've played a few. I was always terrible at them because I've got no sense of like strategy. I have no sense of what makes an actually like good army that would fight other armies. I just liked certain models, and so I built an army out of models that I liked. There was like when I was playing, there was Chaos Space Marines, and then the Nurgle part of that. So I took that, and then they released this like bonus pack, like a DLC, basically a thinner book called the Eye of Terror, which was based around this campaign they were playing at a certain time. But you were able to use the rules from that book in your armies and your games. And one of the rules from that was plague zombies. That you could put into any Chaos army, but they fit perfectly in a Nurgle army, which is basically just a horde of zombies. And I used to get my miniatures and like add green stuff, the modelling putty to them, and then craft my own miniatures on top of these miniatures. Make really make them my own, so they never look like anyone else's armies. Dripping and bulging pus, all kinds of shit. Really cool, fun stuff. So I had that going on already, and then they sold a box of Warhammer Fantasy zombies with like pitchforks and stakes and scythes and those kinds of shit, like, you know, olden day medieval villager zombie type models. So a box of those contained effectively 20 zombies, but I was able to get between 30 and 40 zombies out of them, because some of them I take the legs off and just have the crawling body, because that works as a zombie. Stick it on a base, it's a zombie miniature. And then some of them I put like 2 sets of legs together, like I think Silent Hill did that, where it was a set of legs and then a set of legs. And, you know, I glued them together, put them on a base, painted them, and, you know, stuck some stuff to them and made them look cool, so they were accepted as a miniature. And, you know, it's a demon plague zombie, it wasn't just a zombie, so it fit the theme of like these weird distorted bodies and stuff. So I was able to turn a box of 20 zombies into far more than that. So I had my you know, at the back I had, you know, my Death Guard Chaos Nurgle Space Marines, some demons, a tank with all pus and stuff on it, and in the front was just zombies. But of course the zombies in the game were made in such a way, the rules for them, that they were meant to just take a bunch of hits and they're really easy to kill. But most of the armies I went up against just tore straight through the plague zombies in like the first turn, and then started tearing through the rest of my models, and I lost. I don't think I maybe won like one game out of like 100, if that, in my time. But yeah, like I say, not remotely a strategist. But I liked the models. These are quite cool. I like the sculpts of some of these models. This guy looks really badass. I might draw him or something like him. Yeah, I just think the painting could be a bit grimier. They look a little bit too clean and shiny for my liking, personally. I like the cultists, because you've got like the Chaos Space Marines and the demons and, you know, all this machinery, tanks and robots and mechs and lords and whatever. And then surrounding those, you've just got these weird guys that are just cultists. They're just into it. They're like, yeah, me too. And they throw rags and gas masks on themselves, catch some diseases from, you know, all the army they're running around with. I like that whole side of it as well. Terminators are cool. See, and that's another thing I think with Nurgle, because the point of like Nurgle Space Marines and Death Guard is they're supposed to be just able to absorb shots because of how bloated they are, like them and their armor and all the you know, the demonic gifts, plague gifts they've been bestowed from Grandfather Nurgle. I think the basic Death Guard Space Marines should be Terminator models, and then Death Guard Terminators should be like, you know, 1.5 to 2 times the size, because they should start huge and fucking bloated. And they've got rules where like they've got extra toughness and they can, you know, take more hits. So they should be bigger and bulkier. So these should be the regular Death Guard, and then the Death Guard Terminators being in the Warhammer world. You've got the Space Marines, and then you've got the Space Marine Terminators, which are just wearing bigger, badder armor, and they carry bigger weapons. But that's, you know, if you're into it, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you don't. I like these little, like, I guess you could call them spot illustrations, just filling in instead of having a photo of a miniature or whatever. God damn paint tube getting in the way. I do like, yeah, someone did, you know, paint them digitally, but still all these pipes and tentacles and tubes and stuff. It's quite cool. Skulls. That's another cool thing about the Warhammer 40k universe and the art of it, is skulls with like pipes and stuff. It's like dark cyberpunk kind of. I guess grimdark is the aesthetic name for it, maybe, but it's a cool aesthetic. It's just dark and dreary and grimy and horrible. Skulls and pipes and tubes and things. It's cool. I'm into it. Some of these illustrations are quite cool. They look a bit more painterly. I'm sure they're all digital works, but they're pretty cool. The Defiler was always a fun one. It's like a big spider-like, crab-looking machine with a cannon on it. Those were always fun. I had a lot of ideas. I could never afford to buy them when I was in the hobby, which is another reason I stopped doing it, because it just got more and more expensive. But I always had great ideas for like remodeling these to be more Nurgle-y, like dragging intestines along the ground behind it and stuff. Would be cool, but you know, whatevs. But yeah, there's a lot of visual potential in this. Not to say they don't live up to it, but I always feel like there's always more you could do. But then I could say it about literally every piece of art I do. That's really cool. I love how chunky the armour feels in this. It feels really solid. That fabric draping over it looks really cool. It's a really, really chunky, solid looking guy right there. And not so green. And that's another thing. Like Nurgle tends to be just green, but you do get other colours in there. So it's cool to see a more like pallid, pale flesh tones even in the armour. That's quite cool. And that's a cool one to end on. Is the light shining on it too much? No, that's alright. Yeah, that's a really decent, you know, it's a digital painting, so, but it's a really good one. It's an example of a good digital painting. I don't get quite the Nurgle vibes I wish I got from it, but it's still a really solid, like demonically possessed Chaos Space Marine image. Yeah, I don't hate this. I you know, looking through the book and then seeing the illustration I'm just copying from, you know, I was able to look at it and go, ugh, mine's shit compared to the original that I'm copying from. But just looking at this now, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool little colour jobby, a cool little piece, cool little picture. And like anything, you know, it's not like it's a finished piece. I give it a bit more time, a bit more attention, it's going to end up fucking looking even better, isn't it? If you think it looks good now, just wait until it's fucking finished, you piece of cunt. You fucking shit cunt fart lord. Oh, imagine Nurgle just smells like the worst farts you've ever smelt in your entire life. That would be the only reason I wouldn't want to sort of like side with Nurgle. Just because it would smell. Like I'm into, you know, make me all swollen and bloated and diseased and, you know, oh, I don't feel well because I'm diseased. Oh no, Nurgle's curses are also blessings. Who cares a shit about that? It'd just be the smell. It'd just be walking around with all your Nurgle army buddies just being like, oh god, it's fucking... You'd be sick into your own armour, which would already, you know, be smelly and disgusting, but just be even worse. But the point is decay, you know, decay. I've gone on and on and on and on about it before, so there's not really too much new I can say. But decay is just, it's... See, I had this down as well, because this was like a funny, like, oh, what if there was a reverse lamp? Which is an idea I had. I had the idea because I'm doing, potentially, hopefully, doing Thought Bubble, the comic convention in the north of England this year, in November. It's a pretty big one. It's a pretty big deal. And getting a table can be pretty hard. So me and my man Tombo have got a table together, which is cool. But then just thinking about, like, you know, you want to stand out in the crowd of hundreds and hundreds of other artists trying desperately to sell their shit to people walking past. You want to stand out. And I thought, wouldn't it be great? Because it's going to be like a well-lit, you know, stadium hall full of... Yeah, it's a comic convention. It's just packed with stuff, just bright lights on everything. Wouldn't it be cool if in amongst all of that bright light there was just one area of just darkness with maybe just a little light? So if you could have a large reverse lamp shining darkness over your stall, and then one small lamp on your table within that darkness. Because then people are walking past, they see all these stalls, you know, selling fucking anime prints and replica swords and Funko Pops and Funko Pops and Funko Pops and Funko Pops and Funko Pops, and just some really bad shitty artists selling their shitty artworks and whatever. And then me, but then you walk, you know, you see there's just a block of shadow in amongst all of this with one dim light on the table, and then on the table, hopefully fitting my aesthetic, just a bunch of shit spread out and garbage and fucking. But then you go, what is this? This is mess. This is dark mess. What's going on? But then you look at what's on there, and there's just really cool drawings, like a cool drawing of a thing and a goblin giving a finger and some tits and a bunch of shit. Obviously, I can't have tits because it's got to be like child friendly because it's a, you know, a family event and whatever, so I have to be careful with all that shit. But I just thought that would be really cool if it were possible, which it just straight up is not, to have some kind of reverse lamp that instead of shining light, it shines darkness. It doesn't shine darkness, it creates a beam of darkness that you can then have another light within that darkness. And then, you know, just a never-ending sort of like circle of darkness with a bit of light, with a bit of dark, with a bit of light. Yin and yang, innit? It's yin and yang. And that's, you know, because darkness is the natural state that light happens within. Life is a natural thing, of course, but death and decay are just as natural. And decay isn't a part of death, it's just as much a part of life as fucking waking up in the morning. It's just everything rots away in the end. Which I, you know, fucking bang on and on about, of how the way they protect artwork and even restore artwork and try to bring it back from the brink of death and decay. They clean off all the old varnish and they repaint parts of it to restore it to its, you know, once grand state. And it's just like any great artist that's worth anything knows that their art is going to rot away someday. Like, you just know. That's like graffiti artists know that their work's going to get painted over or washed off or whatever. They know someone else is going to paint over it. They know it's going to get buffed by the council, or they know it's going to get cleaned off or whatever. You paint it with that knowledge in mind. You never expect... You hope it lasts for as long as possible. And, you know, certain people, depending who you are in the graffiti game, certain people will probably respect your work if they see it and be like, oh, I'm not painting over that guy. I, you know him, like him. I'm not going to disrespect him and paint over his stuff. But for the most part, you know your shit's going to get painted over regardless. So you hope it lasts, but you know ultimately it won't, because nothing does. And so any artist painting anything, any oil painters or whatever, Da Vinci, you know, one of the smartest men who's ever lived. You know, maybe not literally, but a smart man. I'm sure he knew the Mona Lisa wouldn't stick around forever and ever. I'm sure he knew that bitch would rot away eventually. But then you've got it held behind bulletproof glass and they clean it and restore it. And it's like, just fucking let it die and make room for more. And that's, you know, it's the circle of life, where shit rots away and it literally helps new stuff grow in the ground. Like that, let it happen. Let art die so that new art can happen. And that's the problem. If you really want to get into it, that's what the issue with conservatives. They're literally trying to conserve, you know, the values, all these upstanding humanistic, which they're just not, you know, Christian values, because they're trying to conserve stuff. They're trying to hold on to this stuff and not let it go, and not let it die and rot away. They have to conserve it and make it last forever, which is such, like, so anti-life. That's just literally not how life works. You have to let shit die. You have to let shit decay and change and evolve. Otherwise, nothing can grow. Literally nothing new can grow if you don't let shit die. And that's what conservatives want. They don't want anything new to grow. They just want to hold on to the ideals that keep rich people rich, which are more often than not white people. And it's false. It's all false. It's silliness. It's false silliness. And you just gotta fucking let it go. Let it go. Put my penis in your mouth. That was unnecessary, but my point still stands. Is decay. You have to embrace decay, otherwise, what the fuck are you gonna do? Get mad when like the world, eventually stops and everyone dies. It's inevitable, I don't want to go all Agent Smith on you, but it is inevitable. I don't want to be on the wrong side of, the issue there. I know it's a trans allegory and Agent Smith is the bad one, but decay's good and it's fun and interesting. You ever see those videos, those like time-lapse videos of like a dead fox rotting away, being eaten by maggots? And that's the point. The fox dies and it starts to rot away and it gets eaten by the wildlife and goes into the ground and creates fertilization for future growth. And those creatures that are feeding on it, they grow into other things and do other stuff. And none of that happens if you preserve the life of the fox and never let it die. And it's the same with humans. If you try to keep human beings in these fucking glass jars, you keep their heads in jars, never let them change and grow and adapt and die, then I don't know if adapt was the right word to use, but it's in there now anyway. You've got to fucking make room for decay, man. You've got to make room for the dirt and the mud and the maggots. You've got to embrace that shit. Be that shit. Feel it. Eat it. Eat the mouldy bread. Let the decay inside your body. Let it in. The decay outside your body doing like that, fuck, what's the guy with the show? Let me in! Let me in! Gotta let it in, man. Embrace that shit. It's important. Es importante. Es muy importante. It's life, Decay is life. Gotta get dirty. Like Christina Aguilera said, gotta get a little bit dirty. Gotta get about a bit. You can tell I'm a big fan of popular music. I don't have too much to say other than that. Just here's my video essay on decay and why it's a good thing, and just let shit die, let shit rot away, let the dust settle and enjoy it while it's there. And it's only cocks that try to preserve everything, make everything last forever. It's not going to happen. And I mean, it's a natural human thing to want to preserve stuff. It's why people take so many photos. Well, it's one reason people take so many photos. It's to try and hold on to these moments and, remember them forever. That's why I annoy everyone, because they say, why didn't you take a picture of that important event in your life? and I say, okay, well, the thing is, so decay is like a natural thing. So you've got, and I go on for an hour and a half about decay. And then I say, and that's why I don't take photos. And then by then I realise I've been talking to myself for an hour and 59 minutes because the person's just walked away because they're incredibly bored by the garbage I'm saying again and again and again. I'm not saying anything new or interesting. I'm not breaking new ground. This isn't a hot take. And I don't claim, that it is. I'm just saying. Dirt doesn't hurt. It doesn't have to hurt. Dirt can be good. Dirt can be nice. It can be refreshing. This episode ended ages ago. Why are you still watching? Turn it off already. Jesus.